All coins which you don't find nowadays. They were called oninis, a tenth of a penny. And a very big proportion of the Sunday morning offerings were oninis. People brought their tenth of a penny and put it into the offering, so that you could have a crowd of 5, 6, 7, 800, which was quite normal, and the offering was less than £1.
Obviously, that's what Idahosa cannot do. He doesn't want to wait on the Lord. He wants to do it by himself. Look at him there with Adeboye, with Wale Oke, with Bishop Reed. So they created their own mess we are seeing today. They created their own ministry. They created their own gospel. And they created their own Jesus, which we are now seeing today. The Jesus you are seeing today is not the Jesus of Nazareth, the one that went to the Calvary. It's not the same Jesus. It's Jesus of all these pastors.
When you shout for money, that money come, I'm saying, is there any escapable way where the work of God can be done without the use of money? Can you think of one?
No, God's methods are men. God has to use men. And men have to be supplied. And it is God's plan that his body, that's the church on earth, should maintain itself. You speak of money in relation to the work. Let me give you my own experience. For the last 28 years, I have never received a salary of any kind from anyone in the world. The Lord told me to step out and try.
Now tell me, who can be that obedient to God among all your pastors? Is it Adeboye that is asking for 1 billion donation? Is it Kumuyi that is crying here and there because of church building, insulting people? Is it Oyakilome that is crying because the gospel artist left him? Money is not coming in, collecting first fruits, empty people's pockets? Is it Ashimolowo that is stealing, asking for donation here and there? Or is it Funke Adejumo that he said they should tap into the grace all our children married as virgin and she's lying? My people, you don't have pastors. Let's continue with Pa Elton.
Him.
I did so. Sorry to cut you short. Are you saying 28 days?
28 years.
Or 28 months or 28 years?
28 years.
How do you live?
By what the Lord sends to me every month, and I have no idea where it's coming from. I never write to anybody for money. I have no circular letters. I have no newsletters going out, no appeals for money. The Lord told me to step out. I obeyed. It's his responsibility to look after me. And so it is with the gospel. He will provide. Appeals must be made to those who are inside a church because they're part of it. And I agree with appeals being made to church members for them to support the work of God.
That was the beat Idahosa ran with, and he used it to start scamming people, lying to people, God projects, and they are doing it for themselves. And today, where are they? He left all the building, all the money they stole him. He left everything. He didn't take a dime with him when the Lord kicked him out of this earth. So, my people, I want you to learn from my video. It's not to criticize anybody, because God desires no one to die and go to hellfire. God wanted every one of us to come back and to be with him when the time comes for us to go. Stay tuned.
8 years ago, you stopped receiving a salary, what we call sustenance allowance. How did your wife respond to that? Mama Elton, when he suddenly came home and said, salary is no more coming, we are going to live by faith? As a woman.
This was nothing as a surprise, because we both had the same calling from the Lord. You see, if somebody pays your salary, then you must work for them and do what they want. And we saw a bigger vision than working for any one church. And so I and my daughter, we were quite agreeable to follow whatever was the Lord said.
Now, I know that of a man, because I'm a man, but I'm talking to you as a mother. What will you say to a young lady married to a pastor who have no hope of monthly salary. What will you say to her?
It depends upon her. If she knows the Lord, then you can talk. But if she doesn't know the Lord, and many of them don't, many people call themselves Christians, but they don't know the Lord. And if she knows the Lord, she can put her life in His hands and He will provide. I have some women that have agreed with me on that line, and they still do trust the Lord.
These mommy Geos don't know the Lord. They only want money, fame, especially Margaret. She didn't learn anything about her husband's death. She continued in his shoes. She's still collecting money. The other day, Chris Oyakilome was there, donated a lot of money to the university. She collected it. So they don't know the Lord.
And He will provide.
The reason I ask you this question is that we have today many young ladies whom pastors would love to marry. But by the time they look at the pastor, no car, no house, no promise, big salary per month, when they are talked to, I'm glad to say I've escaped that. This pastor has escaped that. That has escaped that. What I mean by that is that we are now married, so we will not be faced with that difficulty. But supposing a young lady has an idea to marry a young man, and that man is a pastor, but she comes to discover that that man is not on the salary, and she now says, the only thing holding me back now is you're not having money. What will you say?
Well, I would say the same thing as I said in the beginning. The thing that's missing is love. That's why so many marriages are a complete failure. They don't marry for love. They marry for position, as you were saying this young woman wants. And if you marry for position, you'll fail. If you marry because you want a man or because you want children, you'll fail. But if she wants to serve God side by side with the man she loves, and we've many, many educated young women today and young men that are doing that. And the parents are objecting because the pastor isn't rich or the worker isn't rich, and they say they want their daughter to marry a rich man. But the women stand out and say they love this man and they love the work of God and they'll do what God wants. And God's blessing them.
Thank you very much for that. Let me ask again, if for 28 years you have been living by faith, what can you say to a young man who is about to step to the field? And because I know when I came here years ago to seek your advice and told you that I want to resign my job and go on full time, you advised me to hold on first. You will advise me, I should come back and you will tell me if it is God's time. And I went back. I was very, very disappointed because I wanted to go and you just said it's not time yet. The Lord will speak more to us. I waited. Finally, before I could know where I was, you sent a message to me to say now is the time. And I left for the field to have experienced what we have experienced today. It is good news for me to pass to you today that as at April 2nd, 1982, we have 712 churches in this country now, which was given birth to since I met you and since you prayed for me, and 23 branches in Benin City. This is costing us.
You see the pride and ego, they just want mega, everything mega. They just want praises of men. We've conquered this, we conquered that. With which ability? With what strength? Is it the Lord that actually sent you to do that? See where their downfall started.
So much. When 2 years ago Mama came to Benin, she said something very quietly. She said, if this work is of the Lord will sustain it. And since 1980, we stopped asking for pledges and vows and just left everything like that. And our needs are daily increasing and God is daily supplying. How do you mix these things together? A young man who wants to go to the field, no hope of salary, no hope of income, and yet they have the zeal to do the work of God. What will you say?
First of all,
now you see why Adeboye is proud of 192 branches. Oyedepo 40-something thousand branches. You see where it come from now. You see why I keep blaming Idahosa for the error we are seeing today? He actually didn't learn anything from Pa Elton because the power of his foundation refused to let him learn.
It must be absolutely stressed that anyone wanting to go into the work of God must be absolutely certain he's called of God to do so. There are too many people who are coming into the work of God who are not called of God specifically to leave their work and come into it.
Before Pa Elton passed on, he told them all this truth because he knew that they were going ahead of God. God didn't ask you to open all those branches. They refused to wait on the Lord. Their ego, the power of the land, the power of their foundation was just pushing them. So, what can Pa Elton do? He left them. And look at Christianity today. Everything fall apart. Before Idahosa passed on, he actually realized everything we are seeing here. I've done a video about it. Idahosa warned. Go and search for it. You will see the the breakdown of what he said then. He left from that meeting in London and he came to Nigeria and he slumped and he died. So he knew that God was knocking on his door, that see the mess you have created. And because of that, God forced him out of this world. Thank you, my people. See you in the part 4. This is the part 3. Stay tuned.
Africa or Nigeria, he thinks